The story does not begin at Plataea, it begins with humiliation burned into Spartan memory. 400 Spartans had stood where retreat was impossible, surrounded by an empire that believed numbers alone could crush courage. They were cut down not because they were weak, but because they refused to bend. Across Greece, their deaths became a scar that never healed. Sparta did not mourn loudly, it sharpened its. When the call finally came, 12,000 Spartans marched not as heroes seeking glory, but as executioners carrying a debt of blood. These were not reckless youths drunk on legend, but disciplined killers trained since childhood to stand shoulder to shoulder until death itself stepped aside. At Plataea, they faced the Persian war machine, armored cavalry, elite infantry, archers that darkened the sky. Persia believed Greece would fracture under fear as it had before. They were wrong. The Spartans advanced in silence, shields locked, bronze flashing under the sun, each step measured and final. When Persian arrows fell, Spartan shields absorbed them like rain. When Persian lines rushed forward, they crashed into a wall that did not yield. This was not a battle fought for territory or pride. It was personal. Every spear thrust carried the memory of the fallen 400. Every shield bash was a promise kept. The Spartans fought with brutal efficiency, breaking Persian formations inch by inch, forcing elite troops into panic, turning numbers into a liability instead of an advantage. The ground became slick with blood, bodies piled so tightly that movement itself became a weapon. Plataea was no glorious duel, it was systematic annihilation driven by rage controlled through discipline. As the battle raged on, the illusion of Persian invincibility collapsed in real time. Their commanders screamed orders that no longer mattered. Cavalry found no openings. Infantry found no mercy. The Spartans advanced relentlessly, pressing forward even when wounded, even when exhausted, because stopping meant betrayal of the dead. Greek allies, inspired by the Spartan core, surged alongside them, turning a defensive stand into a crushing offensive. When Persian elite guards finally broke, the psychological collapse was total. Warriors who had conquered cities now fled from men who would not chase recklessly, only advance and destroy what stood in front of them. The Spartans hunted leadership first, cutting down officers, standard bearers and messengers, leaving entire units blind and leaderless. Panic spread faster than any order could stop it. The battlefield became a slaughterhouse, not because of chaos, but because of precision. Spartan discipline turned revenge into strategy. Their formation never dissolved, never chased glory, never allowed emotion to override control. They killed, reset their lines, and moved forward again. The Persians were not just defeated, they were erased as a fighting force. By the time resistance finally collapsed, thousands lay dead, and the survivors ran knowing the myth of Persian dominance had died with their fallen. Plataea was not simply a victory, it was a statement written in blood that the era of fear was over. When the dust settled, Greece stood changed forever. The Spartans did not celebrate wildly. There were no grand speeches, no exaggerated triumphs. They stood among the fallen, counting the cost, knowing vengeance had been delivered, but war had demanded its price. The 400 were avenged, not with ceremony, but with silence, and the destruction of an empire's confidence. Plataea became the moment history turned, where discipline defeated numbers, where memory fueled annihilation, and where Sparta proved that revenge, when tempered by control, could reshape the world. The Persian threat retreated eastward, broken and humiliated, while Greece stepped forward into a future no longer defined by fear. This battle echoed for generations, teaching a brutal lesson: underestimate men who fight for the dead, and you invite extinction. The 12,000 Spartans did not just win a battle, they closed a chapter of humiliation and opened one of dominance. Plataea stands as the ultimate reminder that when Sparta chose to avenge its fallen, it did so completely, leaving nothing undone, nothing unpaid, and nothing forgotten. The silence that followed the slaughter was heavier than the battle itself. Broken shields lay half buried in mud, spears snapped under the weight of bodies, and the once proud Persian banners were trampled into the earth where they had fallen. Spartan warriors moved slowly across the field, not searching for trophies, not shouting victory, but checking the living and the dead with the same calm detachment they had shown in combat. Wounded men were lifted without words, dead comrades were straightened where they lay, and nothing about the scene suggested celebration. Victory had come, but it had come at a cost Sparta never pretended to ignore. Each fallen Spartan was a reminder that even revenge, perfectly executed, demanded blood in return. The allies watched in awe as the Spartans performed these grim rituals, understanding now that this discipline, this refusal to surrender to emotion, was what had shattered the Persian war machine. There were no songs, no drunken cheers, only the quiet certainty that something irreversible had taken place. An empire had been stopped, not by chance or luck, but by men who had decided that fear would no longer rule their future. Word of Plataea spread faster than any army could march. Across the Greek world, cities that had once bowed or hesitated began to stand straighter. The myth of Persian invincibility had been exposed as exactly that, a myth. Persian commanders who survived carried the memory of Spartan discipline back east with them, and it haunted every decision that followed. The empire still existed, vast and wealthy, but its confidence was cracked beyond repair. Never again would Persian forces advance into Greece with the same certainty of domination. The Spartans had not merely defended their land, they had redefined the balance of power. Greece was no longer a collection of frightened states reacting to an unstoppable force. It was now a region aware of its own strength, hardened by sacrifice and united by proof that resistance could succeed. The 400 who had fallen earlier were spoken of not as victims, but as the spark that had ignited this transformation, their deaths given meaning by the annihilation that followed. In Sparta itself, the impact was quieter, but deeper. Mothers received the news of victory with pride tempered by loss. Fathers counted the names of the dead and nodded, knowing those men had fulfilled the highest expectation of Spartan life. Boys training in the agoge listened to veterans describe the battle not as a tale of glory, but as a lesson in control, unity, and purpose. Plataea became more than a victory to remember. It became a standard to live by. The idea that emotion must be mastered, that vengeance without discipline leads only to chaos, was reinforced in every generation that followed. Sparta did not build monuments to Plataea, because the lesson did not require stone. It lived in their training, their laws, and their unyielding belief that strength without order was meaningless. For the wider world, Plataea marked the moment when history shifted course. Had the Persians prevailed, Greece might have been absorbed into an empire that tolerated no true independence. Instead, Greek culture, philosophy, and political thought were allowed to evolve without foreign domination, shaping civilizations far beyond their borders. The Spartans, often misunderstood as little more than warriors, played a decisive role in securing that future, not through conquest, but through refusal to be conquered. Their revenge was not blind rage, it was a calculated response to loss, executed with precision and restraint. That is why Plataea endured in memory long after other battles faded. It was not just about who won, but about why they won. Centuries later, the lesson of Plataea still echoes. It warns that numbers alone do not decide wars, that discipline can overcome fear, and that men who fight for the dead carry a resolve that cannot be easily broken. The 12,000 Spartans did what they set out to do. They avenged the fallen 400, shattered the confidence of an empire, and proved that some defeats are so complete they reshape the world that follows. Plataea was not the end of war, but it was the end of Persian ambition in Greece, sealed by silence, sacrifice, and a revenge carried out to its final, uncompromising conclusion.